Oh, we have somebody who's been in the courtroom. Welcome, Christina. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hey,
Good.
Christina, what's up?
Hey.
Hi, Nate, how are you?
Good.
So Christina, explain to everybody who you are, what you're doing. We know you're there in Fairfax.
Yes, I'm in the courtyard area right now, the Fairfax County Courthouse on lunch break. So I only have a couple minutes, but I'm an independent journalist in Northern Virginia. I publish my articles on Substack. They are at radixverum.substack.com. You can read them there. I'm kind of covering the trial, I guess. And it's been a very interesting day so far, for sure.
Christina, don't downplay it. Your insight is amazing. I'm watching
thank
the
you.
10th season.
What do you can you see the jury engage their mood or reaction to like whether they seem to
give us those details.
Yes,
believe
sure.
in Johnny or not?
Okay, so there's one juror who takes copious amounts of notes.
Like me.
Like goes through legal paths. And I've noticed that like every day with that particular individual. There's another juror who sort of has this this look that's almost like it looks like perpetual surprise or something, and the eyes are going back and forth between the attorney and the person on the stand. They seem to be, though, very engaged in what's happening, I guess.
Okay.
But there's one who looks a little bit bored and kind of sleepy. But the environment inside the courtroom is pretty interesting, I guess. There's been a lot of people are kind of laughing at the strange way that Johnny Depp talks when he answers questions. And on the morning break, Amber Heard was talking to her attorneys about that. I guess she doesn't like the sort of audience laughing at him.
Sure. Yeah, she
Because
doesn't like them connecting with him.
The laughter
Yeah, exactly. It seems like he's holding an audience, you know, like it's in a weird way. It's like watching him perform or something and being part of like I don't know, the crowd. It's very strange. And a lot of these people that are in the audience, a lot of these people are here for Johnny Depp. Almost every single person I've talked to is a Johnny Depp supporter.
Interesting.
So I think there's one Amber supporter, but there's one woman who is from the UK. There were two girls that came from New York. There was a guy who drove from California to be here. So it's pretty interesting.
Wow. So
Yeah.
mostly non-Virginians, like supporters of the various people here?
Yeah, a lot of Johnny Depp supporters. There are a couple people who happen to be local that just wanted to come. And one thing I've noticed over the past time that he has been testifying, there are more people that have showed up. Like when I got there up this morning to the 5th floor where this is happening, as soon as you get out of the elevators, at 8 o'clock in the morning, people were just lined up already. And that wasn't the case last week.
So they have viewing
little
rooms
dollar
or is this all
testimony
in one
last
room?
week.
What's that?
Oh, I just said a little dollar testimony last week.
Yeah, right.
Christina, do they have viewing rooms? Like, because they can't fit everyone in one room. If you're telling me that they're lined up around the block, they must be.
No, there's an overflow room, I believe. But I have not.
Yes.
I've been pretty high up in the. I get there early, so I get in right away, and I get into like the 3rd or 4th row.
Oh.
Okay. Awesome. So you're saying that it sounds like they're connecting with his strange vernacular.
Yes.
So
yeah,
so
his texts are very interesting, I guess.
yeah.
I
So
was actually-
how does that? Do you notice any kind of a difference when they're starting to see some of these bad texts that are coming out as well? Is there anything like, are they kind of wincing? You know, does it feel like that's changing at all with that, or are they kind of? Does it seem like it's kind of the same?
Just everybody in general, or the jurors in particular?
I guess the jurors in particular, that's what we're most interested, but I mean the room in general as well, but we could separate those two.
There has been a couple people turning and like looking like, you know, like that kind of face. But the jurors, I guess they probably have been instructed not to kind of make like obvious tells with their behavior. So there's one individual who does the sort of like furrowed brow. I noticed that when they were putting some of these messages up on the TV, like, oh, yeah. So it just, I don't know if it's deep in concentration, but yeah, sort of like a furrowed brow. Yeah, but I think that for the most part, it seems like he talked about his relationship with Hunter S. Thompson, and sort of how when he is writing, he's kind of, I think he said he was like drawing on a canvas or something, like saying something like he's had 100 Red Bulls. I think they understand that that's not, he didn't drink that many. It's just sort of his exaggerated, his colorful language, I would say. Yeah. I think that people kind of are starting to get a feel for how he writes and communicates. So, but there were a couple winces, and then when I came out on the break, there was one lady who said that she would help her husband prepare for trial, and she goes, "Oh, I can't believe his lawyers didn't prepare him better for this."
Interesting.
I'll also say this, Christine, Amber took your advice from last time we were on the stream, and you could just saying she should be putting light colors, she should put her hair down. It's like she was
put her in a dress with her hair down. Yes, but today she's in the pantsuit again today, though. But her hair looks a little better.
She's looking a little bit like a suffragette to me today.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Which I think is maybe the vibe that she wants to go with,
Yeah.
But that is okay. So that is fascinating. So we are seeing maybe some negative reactions to some of these texts, but people are also getting a good feel for his, his vernacular, as he puts it. And
I think
very interesting.
When Rottenburn tries to press him on things, he's kind of, he'll make these comments and then everybody starts laughing. And I feel like he sort of wins people over. That's the kind of feeling I got just kind of looking around at everybody and their reactions to that. It seems like they're sort of, he's putting that stuff in almost in a context in a way with his goofy commentary.
When he writes a text, I'm in a hotel room with animals and rainbows. You don't know if it's, you literally don't know, is he making a joke?
Oh my God.
Is he high or is he completely serious? That
there's animals in there. I know.
Thing. You don't know.
It's so true.
It's wild. I'm sure it's going to get even more wild after lunch here when we go back in. It's getting interesting.
Has there been any change from what people are saying after the cross-examination of Johnny Depp? Has there been any perception of people reacting to that?
Yes, there were people kind of saying, this is really boring now. Like I talked to a couple girls who were like, we're just going to go home. We've had enough of this. We'll come back later, maybe tomorrow or something. I think people are just kind of finding it not as interesting as his prior testimony that was, obviously not him being pressed to talk about things he already testified to in the UK and kind of how he's kind of contradicted some of that. So I think for people, they just find that sort of thing boring. That's the kind of vibe I've gotten talking to people.
Okay. And that could also be the way that the jury is feeling, or maybe some jurors are feeling as well. Because this is what I always like to say to the people in the chat, to the viewers. If you're bored, the jury's probably also bored.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's right. And I think from watching some of them, they look like two of them look like they're on the verge of like falling asleep all the time. There is one person who kind of has I don't want to say it's not a scowl on his face, but he seems so unemotional. Like he doesn't react to anything, and I can't get a read on that person. So yeah.
Okay. Were you also able to see any of the other testimony in this trial in person before Johnny?
Before today, like have I been here other days? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so did you see Isaac Baruch by any chance?
Yes, I loved Isaac.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the audience loved him. The people that were sitting there, I was on the third row that day. I think it might have been my first day there. I'm not sure if I attended on the first day. I think he was the second day, right after Christie. Yeah, people really liked him, and he's a storyteller. he's a storyteller. He's a likable character, and everybody loved him. And after he left, people were like, "We want him to come back. Bring back Isaac."
We felt the same way.
We want to hear from him again.
We totally felt the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so what can you tell us about the jury in terms of like age and gender, like age range, I guess you could say.
There are a lot of younger looking folks. There are some people who look like they are maybe middle aged, and it's about half and half as far as gender.
Okay, because there was
So
one
it's
juror
pretty.
who had to go home because of a hernia
Really?
issue.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that was a couple days ago. I remember during one of the recesses they had to, or I think it was during one of the recesses they had to talk to him, and he was like, I can go home and take some meds and relax, and I'll be back tomorrow. And she's like, you can't do that.
Oh, that's the guy that. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That one made interesting faces during
really?
this. Yeah, I felt like I could always read what he was thinking. He just kind of made eyes like,
oh,
Oh,
okay.
But I don't know if it's because you don't have a baseline read on somebody before this.
Right.
You don't know if that's just their natural sort of how they handle themselves or conduct themselves. So it's kind of hard. You don't want to make assumptions.
Absolutely true. Now, what about I know there's been a lot of video deposition testimony here too. And on our end, we were like trying to just like work our way through it. It was like we were just grinding, right?
Oh
Like
my
trying to
God.
pay attention. I mean, how like were you there for any of that? Could you see how the
Yes.
jury was responding? Were they paying attention?
Oh my God, no. Especially when they had Brandon, the property manager for the East
ECB
Columbia
manager.
building. Yeah, when because talking about all these technical things with the video footage, and does that video look grainy? I went and saw myself on the Law and Crime stream later, and I'm like this, like I look like I'm about to fall asleep, and I keep like adjusting myself to like wake myself up. I feel like if that's how we were, and I saw a couple people just get up and leave during that. They were like, okay, this is at the end of the day. We're just out of here. We'll watch it on the live stream or something. I can imagine that the jury probably felt the same way. It's tedious,
Yeah,
Very.
it's hard.
and
It's tedious.
And a lot of those questions, unless the two parties stipulate to entering that footage into evidence, which was why the judge at the end of the day said, hey, by the way, my favorite word is stipulate. So if you guys can agree to this, we can save a lot of time. And that was kind of like a very strong hint for them to cooperate a little bit better. But, if they don't stipulate, then it's like those are kind of important but horribly boring questions to get through to lay the foundation for the stuff to come in. Like, do we actually trust that this is what it is? Okay, yes, we do. Is it an accurate representation? Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
Yeah.
But
would you say the time code is accurate to the best of your knowledge? Yeah, we could do the whole thing by the time we're halfway through.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody enjoyed that. And then when we had Nurse Debbie, it was I don't recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was really rough as well. And we were
hard
lucky
to
enough
get
on
through.
Yes. And we were lucky enough on this channel to have Nurse Liz pop into the chat, and she started kind of talking about, why she might be doing that. So I was able to invite her on. And so she came on and was explaining to everybody, like, here's why she wouldn't be recalling anything, is because she doesn't want to add any kind of color, anything to this. She doesn't even want to read her notes in her own voice, because there's a possibility that someone could misinterpret that, twist it in some way, and then it becomes medical liability for her.
Oh,
So it's
that
like,
makes
for her-
sense. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it was, but without that explanation, I wouldn't have, I haven't done medical malpractice myself, so I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that. So it was really, really great getting her insight for that. I can only imagine that in the courtroom, people were just like, why?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. It's exhausting because everybody that is here as sort of a spectator, right? They're getting here, some of them at like 5 o'clock in the morning to get in line. They start giving out their wristbands at 7 a.m. They do that until 9, unless I think they have a limited amount each day. So people get here super early. You know, they're getting up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get here on time, and then just standing around and waiting for hours. You're sitting in that upstairs hallway. You're standing there for 2 hours before they let you in and you sit down. And then it's an exhausting process. I think, you know, it's probably exhausting for everybody. I can imagine for the jury as well. And who knows how long it's going to go on, possibly another couple weeks. So it's a lot of time.
I mean,
A lot of
maybe
time
actually
to
another
spend on
4 weeks is what we're expecting is for this trial to
Really?
last a full 6
Oh,
weeks.
fun.
Yeah. But yeah. So here's a question from the chat. Somebody wants to know
Mhm.
if the jury was ever laughing at any portion of this
No.
trial during any of the testimony. No, they
No,
haven't
no, no,
been.
no. No, and I think they've probably been told not to do that. I can imagine
Yeah.
they've been given some kind of instructions because
Yeah.
no, I haven't seen anything like that. But the first day he took the stand, though, they were sort of he was looking directly at them when he was talking, almost like he was talking to them, and they were all sort of just watching him, you know, like intently, like he had their attention, you know.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then but are people giving that same kind of attention now during cross-examination?
No, not the same.
Okay. Interesting. That
Yeah.
is very interesting too. Because another point that I like to make is that, you know, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so thankful that you've come on here to give us this information, is because, you know, you can get the best information out on a cross-examination that's a total zinger of a question or a response,
Yeah.
but it's like a tree falling in the woods if nobody's there to hear it. Does it actually make a sound? You know, if the
Right.
jury's not paying attention, does that evidence actually make any difference at all?
Yeah,
Probably not.
exactly. And then there's a lot to kind of go through to get there, and they're going back and forth. They want to bring up stuff from 3 years ago because they're trying to, I guess, impeach him. And that can be very boring, I think, for people to kind of even just try to follow, like, what are we talking about? We're going to 2012 in one step, and then we're back to 2015, then we're going back to messages from 2013, and it's hard to like wrap your head around the context of everything. You know, like, what is the context of this? And some of the girls were saying that out in the hallway, like, why are they even talking about this? This has nothing to do with him beating Amber. And I'm like, well, they're going to get there eventually,
Yeah.
but the point is that they want to try to trip him up and see if he contradicts things he's already said in their evidence. So, but for people who maybe aren't familiar with the process, they kind of don't. They see it as very boring, I guess, and
that's an
they
interesting
can't.
observation from when people say that it's not about him beating Amber, because that's like, what exactly is the question is really interesting here, because to talk about,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a victim of domestic violence, and what does that potentially mean?
Yeah, and her attorney, the first thing he said today was, "You agree that abuse can take many forms."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talking
Yeah.
about his mother, talking about the verbal abuse, talking about how he had testified the verbal abuse was at times as bad as, if not worse than, the physical abuse. And he tried to say something along the lines of, well, you know, when I was a child, that those words really stung or something, but the point is still there. So that's the reason they're all going there. Johnny Amber Heard's lawyers want to focus on the technical and focus on, you know, show domestic violence through basically any means of whatever. And so, you know, that's why. But it's interesting that people are asking that, because it's like it might be interesting for the jury too, the questions they're asking themselves.
Abuse can take many forms. Domestic abuse cannot take many forms. It's not like verbal abuse is considered. No one calls verbal abuse from a spouse domestic abuse. Domestic abuse implies violence. It does not imply being an a-hole.
We've had some discussion on the panel about that, though.
I got to disagree. I think a domestic abuse is obviously mental abuse too, but then I think you're talking about domestic violence. I think what you're talking about is the physical portion of it. Domestic violence is different than domestic abuse.
So when you think, and when people are standing up and talking about how they've been a victim of domestic abuse, they're talking about relationships where no one ever laid a finger on them. I've
been in situations, yes, where people have said that they were in a relationship that was extremely abusive, and never had a hand laid on them. But
I-
then and
no,
then
you
and then
call
but
it
they
abusive,
but they
you
make
don't call it. I agree with you.
but they don't call it domestic violence. They don't call it
Yeah.
That's
domestic
the
violence.
difference.
Yeah.
They
Well,
call it
I'm
domestic
gonna
abuse.
I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna grab
Yeah.
my
All right.
lunch now.
Later.
Is there anything
Yeah.
else you guys want to know before I head out?
I think that's about it. That should be it. Thank you so much. And by the way,
Yes.
guys, her link to her Substack is in the description below. Go and check out
Thank
her stuff.
you.
I'm sure she's got some awesome insight from viewing this trial from inside the courtroom. There's a lot of detail that you can't really get on these live streams. We got a lot from these live streams,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
You can't
getting
even
the vibe of the room.
Yeah,
is
the
so
courtroom
different.
is so different in person than it is on the screen. It looks so much smaller than when you're in there. That's one thing. But thank you for
Yeah.
that. I appreciate it, guys.
Of course.
Have a
And
good
thank
one.
you so much for your time. I'd love to have
Absolutely.
you back sometime too.
Oh, thanks. I'll
All
probably
right.
be covering this for a while, so I can pop back in, I'm sure.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.